Hello everyone, welcome to our third Corona video recorded during this lockdown. As we currently still can't work with children with cerebral palsy as such, and some of you might be at home until the end of July, I've resorted to using my ever-extending family of dolls to show you some ideas of moving with your infant at home. Let's get started. So all these movements with your young children do not only allow them to get used to the movement and learn to adjust to the movement, it's also then will develop their head control. And with babies you generally tend to see quite quick improvements with head control. With your child with cerebral palsy, this may be slower. However, it's that experience of moving that will develop head control. So it is not staying in one position that will develop the head control. It's actually the movement. But the movement needs to be small enough, in small ranges, and actually often not staying right in the one straight position. It's more about moving in and out of position or in and out of alignment. I was working with a family the other week whose infant was really loved this position, and they do it completely lying down as well. Their young infant likes to lie on their tummy, and it's a good starting position, because from there then the child can start to lift the head and work on head control, can start to bring the arms under and push a little bit through the arms. But also it's a good starting position to gradually come up more, and they're often in this position with their child as well, which is starting to bring the head up more. And from here then the child brings up the head even more, because it's easier, because gravity is helping them a little bit more in this position than completely lying down, and the child is using their arms a little bit more effectively, and then you can gradually come up more and more. Now, in terms of working on head control with a lot of children with cerebral palsy, we very often suggest to help them with head support. This is not so that you're just holding the head for them, but what it does is it allows the child to develop the head control through developing the coordination in their trunk. Because in order to develop head control, it comes from the trunk control. So by helping them with their head, supporting their head, and we often do it like this, with one hand like this underneath their head at the back. But very often, as soon as you bring the head up in alignment more, bring your child up more, often the head wants to come forward. So very often you may need to support it a bit at the front. And this is often a position that a lot of parents use after feeding, because it allows for the child to bring up any wind, to have a burp, and it's actually a very useful position for a lot of the children that we see, because it gives that nice support. And you will feel, when you support the head like this, that when your child is developing better control, they're starting to lift the head, and that their head feels lighter, and they're not relying as much on your support at that stage, which then it means that progress is being made. The other way you could possibly support them is with this particular child. We were just using the parents were just using 2 fingers underneath the chin, and that worked for this child. Or you could possibly support maybe even with one hand if the head control is good enough or is developed enough, just to be there. And then occasionally, sometimes you can even give it even less support, and there you will really feel when your child is starting to take over more head control. But in order to get this head control, you do need to make sure that the trunk is definitely in alignment as well. Therefore, you may need to use quite a lot of your own body to help with that, whether it's your arms and your forearms and your hands, or part of your body. So then the back is almost supported by your own body, all of your body, and you can perhaps support your child like this with their head, and then it will also allow for the arms to come forwards, because very often what happens early on in life is that almost the arms are too much like this, and then it's not possible for them to easily reach their hand, reach their face. So actually, by positioning them the right way, giving them the opportunity to control their trunk and their head better, then the arms can start to come away from the body in a position where then it's easier to actually reach their own mouth and face. Okay, and you can do that again in different positions, or move between different positions with a bit of supporting the head. You can go into more of a forward position, more on the side. You can do it while you're carrying them and playing with them and moving from one position into another. Possibly, if your child is old enough and ready to take some weight through their feet, then doing some preparation on their tummy will be very useful. And perhaps at this stage, you may be able to do it not on you, but perhaps even be able to do it on a flat surface, or on a surface as such. But it will be useful to use a bit of equipment. So I've got one of the roll towels here that you could use underneath their chest. That will give them some lift and some help in order to make it more possible to begin lifting their head a little bit, which then will be a good preparation for standing. You can use the sides of the towel snug beside them, position their arms forwards so they can start to feel the weight and start helping with that lift and developing the extension at the upper back. Can help them keeping their hips straight, which will help with straightening up here and lifting the head, keeping their legs straight. And then use movement, because as always staying in the one position will be tricky. So giving them a little bit of movement, or if needed even, may have to start on their side and slowly go towards their tummy. On their side is not easy either often, but with your help then they can be stable enough, and you can slowly go towards their tummy and they can start to control their head, and then you can work towards being on their tummy. From their tummy you can work with movement to the side. I would do one side at a time before you switch to the other side, rather than going from left through their tummy onto their right will be much more tricky to do. You can also, I don't have a wedge handy here, but just showing you with two cushions underneath one another, you can also use a wedge and put them completely on the wedge, so then gravity helps a little bit with the head control, or it's a bit like a prone stander almost, and even it could be a stage between lying on their tummy and coming up more, and then maybe starting to take some weight through their feet this way. Also, when you put them into this position and take them out of the position, remember to think about how you would do it and how to help them and how much support they need to take them out of or into the position when you place them, or you can place them onto their side first and then help them to get into the prone position on their tummy. Okay? Or you can help them to move onto side lying and into sitting. Another thing that will help with your child's head and trunk control, if possible, is to start taking weight through their legs, through their feet, because the action and the activity of that will help to get the activity in the trunk that may be needed to develop the activity and the control at the head. Now, these are getting into more detail, so if needed, please do get in contact with us, and we can try this via a video link so that we can tailor it to your individual child and home situation. But there's different ways of starting to help support your child in standing. Also, what you're doing sometimes before it will help, or what you're doing every day. So we talked about that your child may have developed some asymmetries already. Perhaps they tend to look over one way all the time. Useful to perhaps change to the other side, or if you're always holding them like that and they always tend to look at you, be aware of that and change the position, trying to give them the opportunity to activate all their muscles, improve their coordination, and increase their variety, so that they don't always do the same movements, always are positioned in the same way, always turn their head to the same side. But have a go at when your child feels ready and strong and old enough to take some weight through their feet, and try and position their legs so that their feet are underneath their knees are underneath their hips, and then that will help them to get some better activity in the trunk, so that they can keep their trunk as upright as possible, and then that will allow them to start to bring their head on top. And sometimes you may see this kind of wobbly movement of their head. That's actually a good sign. It means that they're aware of it, that they're feeling that they want to balance it, and that they're working at it. And just give them the support, the extra support that they need at this stage. And then you will feel, if you're doing this regularly and you get used to it, you'll feel relaxed enough, you can soften your hands enough so you feel when their head feels lighter, and you can actually start to give them less support or less often. Okay, bye, have fun!
Doei bye bye, een kus en ik zwaai. Doei bye Doei bye bye, doei bye bye.